I kept going to jail. It got to a certain point where my friends were off going to college and I didn't have any sort of future ahead of me. I don't really know where to begin. From the outside, I grew up in a pretty normal looking family, but for whatever reason, I started getting into trouble when I was about 9 years old. I ended up breaking windows, and we ended up breaking into the elementary school. And
This is when you're 9 years old?
9 years old, yeah. There was definitely some interior brokenness. When I was 14, I was prescribed Xanax for anxiety. I was also put on antidepressants. When I was a freshman in high school, I started experiencing a lot of different emotional struggles. And
what did it feel like when you were struggling with the anxiety and depression? What does that feel like for someone who hasn't experienced it?
Completely alone, just not connected with anybody. And so I just never really felt at peace. When I was drinking or using other substances, I felt like I was able to be myself.
Did you continue to get in trouble?
I had a couple of trips to juvie a couple times, went to rehab several times as well. At first, I thought it was fun to get in trouble, and because like when I got out, I'd be able to tell all of my friends, you know, hey, yeah, I was in juvie. I thought that kind of made me tough. At a certain point, I kept going to juvie and I kept going to jail, and it got to a certain point where my friends were off going to college, and I didn't have any sort of future ahead of me.
Where was your faith throughout high school or in this time period?
I decided to leave Christianity when I was 11 years old. I just thought it was kind of ridiculous. I didn't see any logic or reason behind it.
What changed between then and now?
I got arrested for being drunk. I went to jail. I missed a probation meeting because I was in jail. Once I got out, I went to go meet with my probation officer. They smelled alcohol in my breath from the night before, and he looked at me and he just said, "You need to get help." So at that point, I decided to go to rehab. Up until that point, I really thought I was fine. I was like, I got this, I'm smart enough, I'll figure it out. And people recommended, they said, just get on your knees every morning and every night and just ask God for help.
So you're in rehab, you decide, well, in the morning and night, I'm gonna get on my knees and pray to God. How did God respond?
I think little by little, I just started cultivating virtue. I think God called me to give more of myself to Him. 5 years later, everything on the outside of my life was totally fine. I wasn't getting in legal trouble, I had great friendships, but that same feeling that I had as a 14-year-old, that anxiety and depression, returned 100%. It's like, okay, I have nothing else to give, you know, this is it. I think God just fully initiated Himself into my life. And I had the random thought one day to go see a cool-looking church. The first cool-looking church that I found was the Basilica in St. Louis.
That's a pretty cool-looking church.
One of the most beautiful places I'd ever seen in my life. I can really see that, man, I've landed myself in such bad positions, and God has always taken care of me. I suffered a lot of major consequences from my actions, but God has always given me another opportunity to try and come back to Him.
Do you feel like surrender was a one-time thing over that 5-year period, or is it an ongoing part of your faith life?
It's definitely an ongoing part of my faith life. It's definitely been a gradual thing. I'll surrender to God, and then I'll take my will back, and then I'll start controlling things. But the thing that I've learned is like, keep recommitting to God's will, even if you fall back.
One of the things about Brett's story that struck me was his comment that he could never really find happiness in this world. But he was looking in this world. He was looking at things like getting in trouble, using substances, and he never found that happiness. It wasn't until he surrendered to God. And it was a gradual process, and a process that he says he still is on today. That every day he has to wake up and continue to surrender to God. It's not until we surrender ourselves to God, surrender our desires, surrender our happiness, surrender everything, that we can really find happiness.